Let's go. It's time to go, go, go. It's time to go, go, go. Let's go. It's time to go, go, go. Let's go. What you waiting for? Your prayers are already answered. Do you really want it? Ain't got no time to wait. Let's go. Green light. Step on the gas. Don't let no one pass. Some pep in your steps. Follow me this way. Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light. Go. Do you wanna go, go, go? I'm a running show. Do you wanna go? I got the green light. It's time to go. Woo! Let's go. Red light. It's time to go, go, go. Green light. It's time to go, go, go. Let's go. Red light. It's time to go, go, go. Green light. It's time to go. Make up your mind. Check your attitude. Make your mark. That's all you gotta do. Step on the gas. Don't let no one pass. If anyone asks, you got things to do. Let's go. Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light. Go. Do you wanna go, go, go? I'm a running show. Do you wanna go? I got the green light. It's time to go. Woo! Let's go. Ain't got no time to waste. Time to accelerate. Push on right through the game. 'Cause we can't be late. Let's go. Do you wanna go? 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 I'm a running show. Do you wanna go? I got the green light. It's time to go. Woo! Let's go. Red light. It's time to go. You wanna go? Green light. It's time to go. You wanna go? Let's go. Red light. It's time to go. You wanna go? Do you wanna go? Do you wanna go? Let's go. Do you wanna go? Green light. Do you wanna go? Red light. Do you wanna go? Do you wanna go? Do you wanna go? Do you wanna go?
Yeah. Am I feeling free? The dolphin in the sea, rolling in the waves, floating with the breeze. Got my sunny shades on, play my favorite song. Thankful for the charm, life rocking in my phone. I am looking for attention, I don't need the extra tension, 'cause I'm in the fourth dimension, trapeze high in suspension. Now don't bother with the haters, 'cause they all be imitators. Real life manipulators, get it back up and see you later. I like me for me, I'ma be what I'ma be. I like me for me, I am who I wanna be. Don't need no apologies, just peace and serenity. No to the jealousy, Wonder Woman identity. I like me for me, I like me for me. Head over heels, you know how that shit feels. You think it's out of space, but I know that it is real. Sipping Taco Chico, La Coco Puerto Rico. Lick it dance waterfall, anywhere that we go. I am looking for attention, I don't need the extra tension, 'cause I'm in the fourth dimension, trapeze high in suspension. Now don't bother with the haters, 'cause they all be imitators. Real life manipulators, get it back up and see you later. I like me for me, I'ma be what I'ma be. I like me for me, I like me for me. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Gotta prove it to myself and nobody else. 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 I like me for me, I'ma be what I'ma be. I like me for me, I am who I wanna be. I like me for me, I am who I wanna just peace and serenity. No to the jealousy. Wonder Woman identity. I like me for me. I like me for me. Gotta prove it to myself. I like nobody. Gotta prove it to myself. I like nobody. Gotta prove it to myself. I like nobody. Gotta prove it to myself. I like me for me.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching the MOTHERLOAD documentary. We hope you really enjoyed it. I know I did. It was really fun to see everyone from Eugene and all around the States. So excited about cargo bikes and a lot of familiar faces. So for the question and answer session now, we're joined by Ross Evans, who is one of the founders of ExtraCycle, and Liz Canning, the director of MOTHERLOAD. Thank you so much for joining us, Liz and Ross. It's really nice to see both of you. Hi.
Here.
Great. So for this section, anyone who's been with us watching this live, feel free to ask some questions. We're going to have Ross and Liz just do a little intro, introduce themselves, say hi, and then we can start rolling with some questions. So feel free to start typing them if you have them all ready to go. Ross, is there anything you want to say to introduce yourself? Hi, by the way.
Hello. I'll just say how cool this movement that we're all a part of, how awesome that Liz captured it, how great that you guys are taking the torch and fanning the flames in Eugene. We got a lot of people we love in Eugene, so very, very cool. You know, I think of Eugene as one of the hotbeds, the original adopters of this lifestyle, and it's cool that you guys are leading the charge, making this, this especially creative showing tonight.
Great. And again, we have Liz Canning, the director of MOTHERLOAD. Liz, do you want to say anything to introduce yourself?
Well, I was just reminded by what Ross said when I came to visit Eugene. Well, actually, Shane reached out to me when I put the first call for submissions out. And one email that he wrote me was like, I think his twins were really little. And he said, this is like a crazy middle of the night thought that I'm having right now. But I think maybe your film is about like critical mass grows up, which was so perfect because it really is, you know.
It is that everyone graduates, has their kids, moves on to the next stage. And we have one more guest joining us at the end, who we actually introduced at the beginning as well, Ellen Courier, who's a local Eugene parent who also rides by cargo bike and is here to join the conversation. So Ellen, if you want to reintroduce yourself, join on in.
Nope.
She's coming, maybe.
Hey, and this is Shane. I just wanted to say hi, and I just also wanted to say hi to Ross and Liz too. As Ellen brings herself on, it looks like she might be frozen, so I'll get her back on. Hey guys, great to see you, and thanks so much, Liz, for being here, and Ross, it's fun to see you as well. It's been a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring
Ross is down. His volume is a little low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it on up.
Put my headphone a little bit closer too.
There we go. I think that might be better. All right, so I'm gonna pop back on and see what kind of questions we might have. But I wanted to let Kelsey maybe kick us off with any questions, or I know that I was curious just about, you know, sort of to start us all off too, was thinking about how this movie makes you feel now and sort of the times we're in, and sort of like, you know, we're watching this virtually when we had planned to do a live showing with our community, and community being so important. But I feel like there's some real potential for change as well. And so how are you both feeling about where we are now with bikes and cargo bikes and family biking, and sort of in the sort of with the lens of this movie? And I'll hand it back to Kelsey.
Kelsey, you want to start?
I think Shane was handing it back to me to be the host again. So go ahead and answer that, Liz, if you felt like you had something that was coming up for you.
I was reminded today that all things considered, I'm pretty lucky that I have a film that's relevant to put out into the world right now. It feels really good. It feels, in the news every day, there's a different city like closing roads, and some of them permanently to vehicles. It's pretty incredible. I mean, who thought that would happen like this quickly? And I think some people have said that the film is really reassuring right now because it reminds us that we can come together and we can make change. And it's a really up and down time. And sometimes I'm sort of tired of pushing and trying to get more people to show the film and trying to get more people to talk about the film. But then I'll watch the trailer or something really great will happen. And then it's amazing.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Ross, do you have any thoughts on Shane's question and the relevance of cargo bikes in this film at this point in time? It's a big one.
I know, it's just a funny question because it's like, I think for me, I thought we were ready for them 20 years ago, So it's like it's just such a strange notion, but that like maybe now is the time, So I keep certainly seeing just a rise of interest, and it was really rewarding for me to. We had a little neighborhood projection of the film last weekend on our barn, and seeing how many of my neighbors started talking about bikes, and I was like, thought they had no interest in riding, and I thought, wow, that's cool. Like, it's a really powerful film, and as close as I am to it, it was really fun to kind of show it and see my neighborhood's response. So I hope that happens for Eugene as well. One of the things that I'm particularly interested in is how big of a hurdle it is for people to make change in their lives, and I think that's really what choosing to ride a cargo bike in particular is a lot about. Is this kind of transition, this kind of coming up against it, and it seems to me that in particular this time we're in, for whatever reason, for all the reasons, people are actually starting to question decisions that they've made or things they've held as true. And what better time, to reassess whether we ride a cargo bike. And yet the other piece of that is, of course, so now we say, okay, I'm ready to do this. We might bump up against some hurdles. And so to that end, I hope we as a crew here can help people who are feeling inspired, coming at the end of this film, help them answer whatever questions they have, that might keep them from taking action that later they'll come to wish they had taken. So,
Absolutely.
I'm still having a little bit of trouble hearing Ross well.
Okay. Ross, are you able to bump it up?
Can you guys hear him well?
I can hear him okay on my side. Is it it's a struggle for you? Okay.
It just sounds kind of muffled by something.
I gotta do this. I find that if I hold my thing closer, which is
That's
hilarious because earlier I had these same headphones on and they're great. That's great. Thank you, Liz. I'll try to remember to stop gesticulating.
It's a hard one. So I don't see any questions coming through for us yet, but we're actually joined by Ellen Courier. I believe she is back. And as I mentioned, she is a local parent in Eugene who gets around with her 2 kids by bike. I think she's about to come join us. Ellen, are you coming? We'll see if she pops up or not. But yeah, it's really interesting for me to watch the film, Liz. I grew up in a family that didn't have a car. So we biked for our main transportation. So it's just really fun to watch all these other families coming to that same kind of point where they're like, hey, we want a bike for transportation. And it's really fun to see that story told through your eyes and through so many other people's eyes.
Yeah. I had an interesting exchange with this guy online who was responding to a Q&A I did with somebody who does mobility, who advocates for mobility issues in Berlin. And he pointed out that I'm not really the best case study because for me, the sort of like inciting event in the film is the fact that I can't ride my bike, right? The fact that it's taken away from me and I'm the crazy person who just would have kept riding everywhere. And so anyway, I tried in the film to show that most of the people that I profile were not cyclists and then discovered it as parents and discovered how beautiful it was for their families. So anyway.
I really enjoyed that piece. It looks like a question's come through for you, Ross. can you read this here? How do you feel
Yeah.
like the electric assist technology maturing affected your business and the type of people that were buying cargo bikes? How can we spread the word further?
Good question. I find it really fascinating because for us as a business, I would say that as electric assist matured, a lot more players came into the mix. So we had this sort of this huge rising tide, but extra cycle sales sort of I think stayed relatively level, which is not expected, and it sort of was a challenge for us as an organization. But I can definitely say that without question, the maturation of e-assist has moved the needle so substantially. In the sense that I certainly believe that any bike with an electric motor is really better suited to be a cargo bike because it just can handle the weight better. And so it's just, and essentially, once you have an electric bike, again, unless you're just like pure going for like a downhill off-road kind of experience bike, my experience is that once people have an electric assist bike that they think they're going to ride around town, they actually have the equivalent of like a two-seater sports coupe, which really is hard to carry a passenger or their stuff. So I always hope that people who are early on in the e-assist world will recognize the importance of getting out of the racing and recreation mindset and a little bit more into utility mindset because their bikes are now so much more capable.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Looks like another question's come through. What do you all recommend that local communities, both our neighbors and local government, do to help normalize using bicycles to meet our transportation needs and build community?
It's funny because, like, if you go the Portland route, like Philip Ross would say, you build bike culture, right? You have all these events that revolve around bikes, and you, in a way, sort of fetishize them, right? But if you go like the Michael Colville Anderson route, he'll say, no, we don't have bike culture. We have vacuum cleaner culture, right? We all have a tool. We use it every day. We don't dress up in special outfits. We don't have events like, celebrating the bicycle because it's just part of our life. So maybe you have to go the Portland way to get to the Copenhagen way. I always go back, and this was my solution in the film, to critical mass, to the idea that people are gathering, mainstream, normal parents that live in your neighborhood that you might know are gathering to do, like, not an ambitious ride, not an athletic ride, like a pleasurable ride to a park that's perfectly safe, not breaking any laws, but they're very visible. And to me, that's a normalizing thing. Even moms are a normalizing thing. That's a mainstreaming phenomenon, that makes people go, oh, wow, that makes sense to her. That seems safe to her. Maybe I can try that. It's like what Philip Ross says. One day you'll see somebody on a bike and go, oh my God, that's Pam. She's my neighbor. She's not insane.
Hopefully not.
That's normalizing.
Great. Thanks. Does Ellen or Rob, or sorry, Ellen or Ross, do either of you have thoughts on that question? Let's see, what do you all recommend that local communities, both neighbors and government, do to help normalize using bicycles to meet our transportation needs and build community? For you, Ellen, as our newcomer.
For me, I think just having more people out there doing it. I know biking my kids to school, people get really excited to see us out there and then they want to try it, and having the teachers participate really helps. Just seeing more people out doing it and normalizing it is, I think, the way to get more people to try it out and see how fun it is.
Yeah, I'll just throw on top of that, we have this little saying, we say, be moved, which is really like, if you're happy, let your face know about it. And I think to the degree we can exude the joy and invite others in and kind of be our own best proselytizers of the experience, because people watching it will say, whoa, that's cool, and they'll engage, obviously being receptive and all those things. But I would echo very much this idea of just ride, just be that shining light, and I think I think that obviously those who can lead and get involved in local action, that's powerful and useful. Each person, I think, has their own unique role to play, and I think that just takes everybody just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I could add, like, from a more pragmatic perspective, like someone just sent me a video, a promotional video for the Your Move program in Australia, and I thought they were doing some cool things in that they they had sort of a safe routes to school thing, but the kids ran the program at the school, which to me that's
cool.
like a really great idea. They also did stuff like they would send to people who signed up to be in the program like a backpack with a map of the bike routes, which for some people is revolutionary when they discover like, oh, I'm not going to take that crazy road to get from A to B. I'm going to take this other safe road. They also taught the kids like how to ride public transportation, which is pretty awesome as well. Anyway, I thought those were cool, innovative things that Safe Routes to School doesn't do yet.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
I love that idea.
Ellen, it looks like a question came through for you. What's the biggest challenge with riding a cargo bike in Eugene?
I think for me, the biggest challenge is the weather. I do ride in the rain, but I don't like it. So I totally empathize with people seeing, that being a challenge for them. It rains and it's cold. The kids are used to it and they, bundle up, and we've got gloves and multiple copies of gloves because we lose them and leave them at school. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges for me. And then in riding in rainy weather, if I don't have a covered bike parking area, the back of the extra cycle gets really wet for the kids. So if I can find a covered bike parking spot, that's ideal for cargo biking.
That makes sense. Thanks for sharing. Okay, here comes another question. Looks like it's for everyone. So is there a feel for the cost barrier that's present in the perceived accessibility? For instance, some e-bike manufacturers, Rad Power example, are selling products under 1,500, whereas others are still at the more like 4,000, 5,000 zone. Any thoughts on that from any of you?
I have an E-Rad Assist on my extra cycle and I love it. So, I mean, it's still not a cheap bike by any means, but I think if you compare it to the cost of a car, it's a way lower barrier to entry than buying a vehicle.
Mm-hmm. And that was touched briefly on in the documentary as well, Liz, just kind of the cost of buying an extra cycle or cargo bike in general. Do you have any thoughts on?
Well, I think it's really about making the shift to this is a car replacement. This is something I'm going to use every day, and I want it to be reliable. And I want my local bike shop to feel like my local mechanic, that I know I can take it there and get it fixed quickly. And, it's really a mind shift to that. I mean, I'm lucky. My husband knew that if we bought a cargo bike back when, it was actually really a challenge for us to afford it. I think insurance paid for a lot of it because we had a bike stolen. But we were like, bikes are important to us. So of course we're going to make an investment in this. This is because we know it's going to we knew it was going to hugely improve our life. So, and you want it to work really, really well. Having a great bike versus a not great bike is like, revolutionary. So once you get there, I think investing money in your bicycle just feels like it makes so much sense versus investing in a car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are there any programs out there that anyone's aware of where you can finance a bicycle purchase?
I think more and more bike shops are doing it, right, Ross? Aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and maybe we offer financing to people. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely helpful to have that. And what I've come to realize is that through our work with World Bike, that bikes are incredibly valuable and useful in almost all forms. But when you go around the world and you see the quality of a bike and kind of how much work has to go into maintaining it when it's made very, very cheaply, you see the same thing here. Many people would, in the bike shop world, would laugh at a Walmart bike or a sort of a big box bike. And yet people, oddly, I don't know why, but haven't yet realized that it's basically the same thing when you buy a very low cost electric cargo bike. You shouldn't expect it to last any longer than you might a Walmart bike, but those bikes have their place. Like many people might get turned onto it sometimes my fear is that they might be dangerous, or it might break fast enough that people lose their momentum. So that's my kind of main caveat is that, you know, go in, you get a really low cost cargo bike, especially a low cost cargo bike. Just make sure you go in with enough staying power that if it fails on you, you don't give up, because that would be the worst. That would be the costliest mistake for those of us who are drawn to the lifestyle and yet to miss out on it simply because we didn't understand what we were buying. That would be my thought. I mean, I'd say it's definitely a mindset shift.
Absolutely. Ross, is there any way you can still turn up your audio just a bit?
Yeah,
We all want to hear you. Okay. Thanks for those. That's a lot better. So thanks for that. Are there any other thoughts on accessibility or the different levels of cargo bikes available on the market now? Or okay. So another question just came through for Liz and Ross. Who were the role models that showed both of you cycling as a means for transportation? If there was someone in your life at some point, who were they? And can you tell us the story?
So I think around when my parents split, my dad was having like a midlife crisis, and he started running marathons, and he started riding his bike to work. It was only like 6 miles, but back then people thought he was insane. And then he started doing rides on his own. Like he would go for big rides in Oregon, actually. I remember when he came back and showed me like these photos of like the coast and the huge rocks and stuff, and that he rode past them. That just blew my mind. And I don't know, then I guess, we went on a road trip, he and I, once when I was in college. We did the Outer Banks in North Carolina.
Oh, cool. Together.
Yeah, that was really cool. And then I never wanted to drive too. That was the other thing, is I just wasn't interested in driving.
That's kind of what started your momentum towards biking.
Yeah. And I got to admit, it was a double-edged thing. It was partly, I think, I didn't really want to grow up. But also driving just seemed like such this huge responsibility. Like, who wants to be in control of this thing that you can kill people with, you know? And it just puts out this horrible air. It just didn't appeal to me on any level.
Yeah. How about you, Ross? Who was your the person that got you into biking, if there was someone?
It's funny. I don't remember like a precise person, but I must have been my parents, because I do remember that they were pretty unique in that they got this thing called a Whisket, which was like before the Burley trailer, at least, that they didn't have like an enclosure or anything like that. So it was just like this sort of utility bike trailer. And my sister and I would just sit in the back of it, you know, without any helmets or not tied down or anything. And it was this crazy thing, because if you leaned up against the side, your arm would get burned on the tire, you know. It was like a total, like, crazy to think about it, you know. And I so wish I had a picture of that, but I still kind of remember my body. Anyway, my parents it seemed like just brought it upon themselves. I think that just made sense to them that riding bikes was a better way to get around, even though they were, I would call them, like, you know, they got like married, you know, near Haight-Ashbury, like very much in the 60s, but had nothing. They were like totally like missed the whole like flower child thing, and yet somehow got this deep sense of, you know, accountability for the earth, and I think passed that on to me with a high dose of, you know, value of service. And so I think it just, I started riding my bike to school a pretty long way, like 5 miles or something, to elementary school, and the fact they let me do that, and I just kind of got into it, and I don't know, there was something for me. It's an interesting question though, like what was there something really that drove that? It's hard to remember, but it definitely started early on.
Yeah, I'm hearing a theme of adults in your life, and in the case of both of you, your parents. Ellen, did you want to contribute to this question as well?
Yeah, I don't actually think I ever remember seeing my parents bike that much, but I biked my whole life. I biked to school as a kid, all the way up through high school, and then moved to a very bike-friendly college town, Gainesville, Florida. Then moved to another bike-friendly college town for grad school, Eugene. So I think it's just something a lot of people grow up and they stop biking, and I just kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you made me just remember, every summer we went to this place in Massachusetts, this little community where Like there was a stop sign every 15 feet. Like the speed limit was like 20 miles an hour on all the streets. And so like when I was 3 or something like that, I could ride my bike to the penny candy store at the post office. And that was huge. I mean, that's where I think I learned the feeling of being really free and independent on my bike.
So infrastructure plays a part as well, I'm hearing from everyone. Fantastic. Another question came through for you, Ellen. Ellen, did you transition from a regular bike to a bike with racks, maybe a child carrier and cargo bike, or straight from a no bike to a cargo bike? So just kind of what was your transition to a cargo bike?
So I had the one of the Clever Cycles Dutch bikes when my daughter was born. And so we put a Yep seat on that initially. And when she outgrew that, we got a Burley trailer. And I liked the Burley trailer for the weather protection. But when the kids were really little, it was hard to talk to them because they were covered in the back. And really young, when they were really young, I felt like they cried a lot more in the trailer. And then we transitioned to the extra cycle without an electric assist. And I rode that for many years. And then when they got bigger, I added the electric assist. So yeah, I went through a lot of transitions with my biking as the kids grew up.
I remember the extra cycle transition because I sold you that bike.
We love our extra cycle.
Yeah. That's so great. Okay, another question for all of you. What was the most fun part and scariest part of making the film? Oh, sorry, this is a question for Liz. Liz, what was the most fun part and scariest part of making the film for you?
Well, it was definitely scary before it was fun. I think Ross, actually, this is a question in a way for Ross, because Ross, you remember when I had been doing it for like a year or two and I didn't have any funding and it was time for me to do an extra Kickstarter campaign. And I was so scared of putting myself out there and asking people for money. And Ross really talked me away from the edge and, said, you can do this and you just have to commit to it and all this stuff. And then people came through. People came through to such a degree that it became even scarier, because then I really felt like, oh my God, I really have to do this. People are waiting for this film. People are expecting something. And so I went in and out of being somewhat paralyzed by that. And I think part of my defense mechanism was to really focus on Ross's story and the technology and the history of the bike. And it wasn't until very late in the process, and this I would say would get to the fun part, because I think I really always wanted to make a personal film. I had made personal films before, and then I had started editing other people's films. And I think that, this really got really buggy all of a sudden. I think it was late in the process I got the feedback that, no, we really want you to hold our hand through the story. We want to hear the personal, the emotional, like, what does this experience mean to you? And then, like, at this big feedback screening where everyone told me this, it was kind of like, wow, I just wasted a lot of time editing a lot of stuff that's not going to make it into the film. But on the other hand, they were giving me permission to really make the film that I think I wanted to make, and to end up feeling like, wow, I actually have something to say that people feel is significant. That was like amazing. And I love editing and I love animation.
I love how you brought the film together, and it really did feel like you took a lot of information that I've heard snippets of in different places. I'm somewhat familiar, but the way you put it all together really made it feel like a full story and helped me really understand the cargo bikes and how they've been evolving in the States. And it made me really excited about them. And I'm already excited about cargo bikes, but it brought a new excitement for me. So I think you really succeeded with bringing a personal voice.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a lot of work.
It paid off. Let's see. Okay, here is another question. I own an electric bike, bike tour biz with, somebody who owns an electric bike tour business is asking, with the pandemic, we are thinking about ways to handle long-term changes. We've considered opening a cargo bike shop. What advice would you give to make that a success?
Ross, you should start that one.
Ross, you
and Kelsey, you should add.
I can also add to that.
Well, you're already in the bike world, so you're familiar with how hard business is in the bike space. So definitely don't take it lightly. You know, it's definitely. I don't know that there's anything easy about it as far as I've heard. I think what I've mostly heard is that people who are committed to it really enjoy the people who choose to buy these bikes, feel really a part of their lives. And so if it feels like it's your calling or your purpose, or you really feel like you have something to give to it, my hunch is you'll really find great meaning in that experience.
Mhm. Mhm. Ellen or Liz, either of you have any advice?
I would say that, you know, from my perspective over the years, there's been like a number of shops that really stand out, that are clearly they know how to do this. And I'd be really happy to hook you up with those people, because those people are really eager to help cargo bike retailers in other cities figure out how to sell these bikes, because they love them and they believe in it, and they've learned over the years. I mean, like G&O Family Cyclery and 4-Star Cyclery and the New Wheel. I mean, I can, if you want to email me at info@motherloadmovie.com, I can definitely put you in touch with those people and you can pick their brains. Because and Bike Shop Girl, our Lee Greenwald, is brilliant in Denver.
Mm-hmm. And I the bike shop in Eugene, Oregon, Arriving by Bike, and I worked there for 5 years. And I would just add to that, I was there when it first started and helped build the business. I would add to that having an identity, maybe even beyond cargo bikes, is it family biking? What is the identity and what really draws you there? And then hiring people who really believe in that identity and doing really good training and really knowing your product and being able to deliver and make a personal connection with people who walk in the door. And really asking yourself, is that something you're wanting to put the time and energy towards? Because I think it does take that branding, that time, and investment in the people who work there, as well as the people coming in the door, which you are familiar with as a bike shop owner, I'm sure.
I'd love to throw in on top of that that the bike shop world is ready for a people. It's obviously faced its own challenges in this time, but you know, what I could say is maybe you could bring your awareness or your experiences and bring that to the cargo bike world. And I don't, in a way that nobody has done yet, but I do know very definitively that it's very hard to get a good test ride at a bike shop, because you just invariably aren't carrying the things you would carry or riding the route you would ride, or for whatever reason, it's just different. And so maybe there's an opportunity for you to do something different, utilize some of the skills or, you know, aspects even just how you book tours, you know, you might be able to use some of that stuff in your favor of helping meet people's needs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Here's a question for you, Liz. Recreational riding opened the door to transportation bicycling. Or actually, this is Sue saying, Liz, for you, recreation riding opened the door to transportation bicycling. In Eugene, it seems like it's an either or thing for most people. How do we build the bridge between long rides for recreation and functional rides to get around town? Do you have any advice on that?
You know, that was part of the reason why I wanted to make the film, because the whole time I was racing, people would say, why do you ride so much? Like, you're riding too much to do well in the race. You know, you're commuting way too, and I really love just riding my bike more than racing. And the thing is, where we live, there's a lot of recreational riding, a lot of serious racers, and it is really hard to say, you are like the fittest person I know, and you're driving 3 miles to work. It is a hard thing, but I do think Fairfax is changing, and it's partly because there's so many parents riding their kids around. I don't know. That's part of what I wanted to do with the film, is to get those people to understand that it is important. It's an important choice, that when you make the decision to drive instead of ride, that's a significant thing. Every person that makes the decision to ride instead of drive, they're going to turn on eventually, just by doing it every day. They're going to turn on another 5 people, you know, or more. It's not nothing. It's not something. It's something that you should really think about. Mm-hmm. It affects your whole community.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think this can maybe go to Liz first, but it can go to Ellen and Ross as well. This question is, what's your dream for now, our future, and for yourself? I think you could answer as broadly or as specifically as you like. Who wants to take a stab at that one?
Wow. I mean, that's a really tough one, especially given how unsure our future is.
Yeah.
You know, when the virus hit, I launched another crowdsourcing project thinking people are at home and they have this time, this pause button has been pushed. Maybe, you know, this is a time when people could share video with me and we could really think about what we want everything to look like when we come out of this. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be reshaped, right? There's a lot of change that's going to happen. But I think everyone's struggling, and I don't think it's not like the cargo bike crowdsourcing where people were just thrilled to share their video with me. I think it's a really tough ask right now. So for the future, like, I don't know. What I hope and what I think this project would be focused on is the question of a social contract. Like, what is the value of a social contract in our culture? I mean, I think if you were God right now, or in the last decade, and you watch what's happening to our culture and the individualism versus, you know, community conversation, the Democrats versus the Republicans, if you were God and you said, I want to teach them a lesson, what would you do? You would send them a virus that involves everybody making sacrifices to protect everybody. And there would be a lesson in there to learn. And so I would like for us to learn that lesson. That's what I would like for the future.
Yeah. Ellen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of really inspirational ideas come out of this time too, of people just taking this time that we're sort of homebound to reevaluate our priorities. And I've seen a lot of hopeful messages around that. And, you know, of course, a lot of people are hurting and going to be in a tough economic situation. So some of that won't necessarily be a choice. But I'm hoping that this difficult time that we're going through will give us that chance to reevaluate some of our habits and our consumption patterns that we've kind of just let go unchecked for a long time. And maybe this is an opportunity for us to change gears a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Ross, do you have any thoughts?
Wow, it's definitely a great question. I mean, I'd say my vision for now would be that we utilize this challenge that we're facing to become more resilient, to become better interconnected, and to actually flex our muscle or build the strength of gratitude. I'm reminded of like Viktor Frankl, or people who have endured, you know, unimaginable difficulty, and are even, you know, for the worst cases, it's still like there's still people who can find reasons to be grateful. And so to me, that's a vision for now, certainly for myself, to find this. Yeah, like I think to really dig into our resourcefulness is I think there's something fundamentally resourceful about riding a cargo bike, and so I think that it kind of comes with our mindset, a little bit greater resourcefulness, and so that's my vision, that we might even as a community provide some kind of light of hope for others. For the future, I mean, I'm ever the optimist. I believe we could literally boomerang off of this and change the course of human history in a way that we never could have imagined was possible. And for myself, my vision is to just be a happier, more better dad and husband, and I hope to keep finding ways to contribute in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you. Do any of you have any thoughts on the future of, you've spoken to yourself and kind of the state of the world now. Do any of you have any thoughts on the future of cargo bikes themselves as well? Just like where you'd like to see that head, or anything you're excited about for the future of cargo bikes?
From what I hear, they're like flying off the shelves right now. That like people, you know, who aren't running around a million miles an hour are pausing for a second. Especially people in San Francisco is my main source of this knowledge. She said that there's all these parents who are looking for a way to go out safely with their kids and give them a stimulating experience and they're buying cargo bikes.
Great.
Yeah.
Continuing that momentum. So I think we're about to wrap up. If anybody has any last minute questions, go ahead and send them in. But I'll let Liz, Ross, and Ellen also do any wrapping up comments. Anything maybe that wasn't asked that you really would like to share with the Eugene audience about the documentary, cargo bikes, biking in general. Very broad, but I'll just kick it back to you.
Yeah, I can just speak to, so I've been biking with my kids for 10 years. My daughter's turning 10 in June. And I feel like the amount of people that are riding cargo bikes since that has just exploded here in Eugene. And I really resonated with me that part of the film where you were talking about kind of the bike backlash and the comments that moms received. And I feel like that's changed so much over the course of my biking life. I definitely felt a little bit like on display when I first started biking with my kids, and I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like there's so many people out there riding, and usually the comments I get are, I love those bikes. Those bikes are so cool. I see them all over the place, which is just such a transition from when I first started biking with the kids on the back.
That's great. That's how it goes. That's how it should go. That's, it just takes a few more women to take that chance and get out there. And the more that do it, the more that do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any wrap up?
I'll throw out there. I'd just love to say thank you, Ellen, for being an extra cycle rider.
Thank
Kelsey,
you.
For being an early contributor to your dad's endeavors, and what a great vision of edge running you guys have been, and a real home for Eugene and such a cool town. For you, Liz, thank you for your courage and all the times you picked it up again when you probably wanted to quit and run away, and just the service that you provided to all of us to give some inspiration. And I personally aspire to be an powerful individual, which could be to say, if anybody listening, I don't know who's out there, but if you haven't been riding, if you feel some inclination, I just want to kind of like give you a little gust of wind, or like some wings or something to, lean on Ellen or Kelsey or somebody there, just like get some help if you need it. We have some resources on our website at Extra Cycle if you want to use those. We have something called the Ride Guide, which is there to help people figure out a good solution. But whatever it is, just hopefully don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis, and move towards a brighter future for all of us. That's my hope.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Liz? So I would just end with, please tell your friends in other places about the film. Encourage people to do this sort of thing. This is great, I think. And if you're curious about my new project is called Co-Videography. And I'm working on a short video that I hope will help get people excited about sharing stuff with me. And the end product may be just something short. But if you have any video that kind of expresses how you feel about this time or what your hopes are for the future, go to motherloadmovie.com, and there's a co-videography page there. You can find out more about the project.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Liz Canning, for joining us and talking about your wonderful film. Thank you, Ellen, for joining us and talking about the cargo bike lifestyle. Absolutely. And thanks, Ross, for joining us and talking about Extra Cycle and cargo bikes. So we're going to wrap up now. And I hope everybody has a lovely evening and a lovely weekend. Thank you so much, all, for joining us.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Have a good night. So thanks, everyone, for joining us for the MOTHERLOAD documentary. We really appreciated all your questions, all your excitement, and really, really appreciated having our live Q&A and just hearing Ross and Ellen and Liz talk about cargo bikes and where they see the future heading, where it is now. Don't forget that May is Bike Month in Eugene, and you can go to the City of Eugene Transportation Facebook or webikeLane.org. And you can view all the different events that are happening. And those events are for people who are biking, people who are just getting into it. And there's a very broad range. So head on over and check that out. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we hope you have a great time getting out and biking this weekend and being safe and physically distanced while doing so. Good night, Eugene. And